My husband put me out of the car right on the bridge and sped off. I was left standing there alone, clutching a grocery bag, until an expensive crossover screeched to a halt next to me. A silver-haired woman was behind the wheel. "Get in. You're going to be my daughter for one meeting, and I'll help you deal with a husband like that. Welcome to the channel, Twists of Fate." Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where you're watching from. We'd love to know. We hope you enjoy listening to this fascinating story. Keziah clutched the soaked grocery bag in her hands and watched the red taillights of the car fading into the distance. The rain was coming down in sheets. Cold streams of water ran down the collar of her jacket, and her hair was plastered to her face. She stood in the middle of the pedestrian walkway of the bridge, the wind from the river cutting right through her. Her feet, in light flats, were already soaked. The bag was getting heavier by the second. Green onions and the edge of a loaf of bread poked out from the top. It all started back at her mother-in-law's house. Ms. Vesta, as usual, had set the table and summoned them for Sunday dinner. Keziah knew these visits rarely went smoothly, but Tremaine insisted on them every single time, just like this morning. "Mama's waiting. She's all alone. We have to go." Even on the drive to Ms. Vesta's, Keziah had felt a knot of anxiety in her stomach. Maybe it was intuition, or maybe just exhaustion from these endless Sunday dinners that always turned into an interrogation. Ms. Vesta lived on the outskirts of the city, in an old 3-bedroom apartment where Tremaine had grown up. The hallway smelled of cats and dampness. The floorboards creaked with every step. At the table, things started off peaceful enough. Ms. Vesta, as always, had cooked way too much food: smothered pork chops, collard greens, mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese, and sweet potato pie. She bustled around the table, piling more food onto their plates. "Tree, baby, eat, eat. You've gotten so skinny," she fussed, slapping a third pork chop onto her son's plate. "Ma, I ain't skinny," Tremaine smiled, clearly soaking up the attention. "Skinny, skinny, it's all that work. You work yourself to the bone, and for what?" Ms. Vesta sighed and shot a look at Keziah. "Kessie, you need to make sure he eats right. A man needs to be fed." Keziah forced a smile. These little digs came every time. Either she wasn't feeding her husband right, or he wasn't dressed right, or she wasn't looking after him. As if Tremaine were a child and not a 30-year-old man. "He doesn't complain, Ms. Vesta." "Well, of course Trey isn't the type to complain." The mother-in-law sighed again. "He's just like his father. He kept everything inside, too." The conversation, as always, shifted to her late father-in-law. Keziah listened with half an ear, mechanically finishing her greens. She knew these stories by heart: how Mr. Horace worked at the plant, how he wasn't appreciated, how he died of a heart attack at 52, leaving Ms. Vesta with a 10-year-old son. "I raised him all by myself." Ms. Vesta looked at Tremaine with pride. "College. A good job. I did it all alone." "Ma, come on, that's enough." Tremaine waved his hand in embarrassment, but it was obvious he loved hearing it. After the main course, pie and sweet tea were served. Ms. Vesta poured the dark tea into cups and pushed the sugar bowl forward. And that was when the conversation turned to renovations. "Trey, you can see for yourself, the wallpaper in my kitchen is peeling off." She pointed to the wall where the old paper was indeed coming loose in the corner. "And the faucets are leaking. I just don't know who to call. Plumbers charge an arm and a leg these days." Tremaine immediately tense up. Keziah noticed his grip tighten on his cup. "Ma, but that takes money. Serious money. A contractor is going to ask for $2,000, minimum." "I'm not asking for the impossible." Ms. Vesta placed her hand over her son's, then shifted her gaze to Keziah. "I heard Kessie got a bonus at work. Maybe you two could help? I'd pay you back later, of course." Keziah felt everything inside her tighten. That bonus, $2,000, was her first bit of joy in the last 6 months. She had received it for a project she'd worked on for 3 months, sacrificing her evenings and weekends. She had dreamed of buying herself a decent coat for the fall, instead of walking around in her old jacket with the worn-out elbows. Maybe she'd even have enough left over for new boots. Ms. Vesta, we're tight ourselves right now. We have the car note, 6 months left to pay. Utilities have gone up. She stumbled, seeing Tremaine's face darken. So you begrudge your money for us? Tremaine slowly pushed away his plate of pie. She gave her whole life for me, raised me alone. And you can't help with a repair? Tremaine, that's not what I meant. It's just that we're not in the best spot right now. Let's do it next month. Next month! He raised his voice, slamming his fist on the table. The cups rattled. You always have excuses. My mother lives in these conditions. Faucets leaking, wallpaper falling off, and you're thinking about your clothes. Tremaine, I'm not thinking about clothes. Quiet! He stood up from the table, tall, looming over her. I'm ashamed of you. Ashamed in front of my mother. Ms. Vesta stood up too, looking demonstratively hurt, pressing a hand to her chest. It's okay, Trey. I'll manage somehow. I don't want to be a burden. Maybe I'll ask the neighbor for a loan. She's kind. She'll understand. Ma, don't talk like that. Tremaine hugged his mother around the shoulders. We'll help. Right, Kessie? Kessia sat looking into her cup. Inside, she was boiling with resentment, anger, and helplessness. But she knew if she didn't agree now, it would be worse at home. Tremaine wouldn't let it go. He'd scream all night. He might storm out to his friend Marcus's house and come back drunk in the morning. Fine, she said quietly. We'll help. But Tremaine was already worked up. Dinner ended in tense silence. Kessia helped clear the table and wash the dishes in the old, cracked sink, where the faucet really was dripping. Ms. Vesta packed the leftover pie into a bag, adding a jar of her pickled okra and an onion. Here, take this. I made it for you. She handed the bag to Kessia, but didn't look at her, as if she were still offended. When they left, Ms. Vesta kissed her son on both cheeks, holding his hands in hers for a long time, but only gave her daughter-in-law a cold nod. In the car, Tremaine was silent for a long time, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. Kessia sat, hugging the bag to her chest, staring out the window. It was already starting to get dark, even though it was only just after 5. October was setting in. The days were short, and it rained often. They pulled onto the expressway, then turned toward the bridge over the river. The light at the entrance turned green, and the car rolled onto the wet asphalt. It started to drizzle. Rare drops tapped against the windshield. Tremaine turned on the wipers. The silence in the car grew heavier. Kessia felt the tension rising. She knew the signs. He was about to snap. They were in the middle of the bridge when he finally spoke. You embarrassed me today. Kessia flinched and turned to him. I just told the truth. We really don't have extra money. Extra? He slapped the steering wheel. The car jerked. There is no extra money when it comes to my mother. Do you understand that? She raised me alone. My father died when I was 10. Do you have any idea what she went through? I understand. But we can't keep doing this. Constantly. Constantly? Tremaine's voice got louder. She asked for help twice this year. Twice, and you think that's constantly? Maybe you just don't give a damn about my family? The rain intensified, drumming harder against the car. The wipers could barely keep up. The lights of oncoming cars blurred into solid streaks. Somewhere to the right, beyond the bridge railing, the invisible river roared in the darkness. Tremaine, let's talk calmly at home. Kessia tried to take his hand, but he snatched it away as if her touch burned him. Don't touch me. It's all clear to me. You're selfish. You only think about yourself and your clothes. That's unfair. Kessia's voice trembled. Tears welled up in her throat. I work just as hard as you do. I pay for half of everything in the house. I buy half the groceries. I pay the utilities. I just want the right to manage my own money. Your own? Your own money? Tremaine sharply turned the wheel. The car swerved to the shoulder of the bridge and screeched to a halt near the pedestrian crossing. He slammed on the brakes so hard, Kessia was thrown forward. The seatbelt cut painfully into her shoulder. So now we're splitting things into yours and mine? Is that how we're living? The car sat right at the edge of the curb. Other cars zoomed past, spraying water. Tremaine unbuckled his seatbelt and turned his whole body toward his wife. His face was red with rage. Veins bulged on his neck. "Tell you what, since you have everything of your own, get out. Walk on your own 2 feet, since you're so independent." Keziah couldn't believe her ears. She looked at him, trying to see if he was joking, but in his eyes, there was only cold fury. "Are you kidding? It's pouring rain. We're on a bridge." "Get out," I said. He reached for her door, but it was locked. Tremaine jumped out of the car and stormed around the front. The rain immediately soaked his shirt, plastering his hair to his forehead, but he didn't seem to notice. He yanked Keziah's door open. "Tremaine, have you lost your mind? We're in the middle of the bridge. It's 5 miles to the house." "Get out before I drag you out." He grabbed her arm hard, painfully. Keziah screamed, trying to pull away, but he dragged her. She barely managed to grab the grocery bag automatically, without thinking. "Tremaine, stop! You're hurting me!" But he shoved her onto the wet sidewalk. Keziah stumbled, nearly falling, but caught her balance. Her flats slid on the slick concrete. Tremaine slammed the door so hard it rang out and got back behind the wheel. A second later, the car peeled away, splashing Keziah with dirty water from a puddle. The red tail lights quickly disappeared into the stream of traffic. Keziah stood there, unable to move. The rain drummed on her shoulders, her head, running down her face. Her jacket was soaked through instantly. This old windbreaker hadn't been waterproof for a long time. Cars rushed by, headlights blinding her. People hurried along the sidewalk under umbrellas. Someone walked around her, casting a curious glance. She walked slowly to the railing and leaned against the cold concrete. The grocery bag hung from her hand. With trembling fingers, she pulled her phone from her pocket and looked at the screen. Raindrops smeared across the glass. She dialed Tremaine's number. Long rings. 1, 2, 3. Then it cut off. Keziah dialed again. Her fingers were stiff. Rings again. And cut off again. On the third try, Tremaine finally answered. She heard his irritated voice. "What do you want?" "Tremaine, please come pick me up. I'm soaked. I'm freezing." "Walk home yourself. Maybe it'll help you get your head straight. It's 5 miles. You can think on the way about how to talk to my mother and think about family." He hung up. Keziah tried to dial again, but the phone showed subscriber unavailable. He had blocked her number or just turned off his phone. She lowered the hand holding the phone and only then felt the tears mixing with the rain on her face. The cold chilled her to the bone. She couldn't feel her feet in the soaked shoes anymore. Her jeans stuck to her legs, heavy with water. Keziah looked into the distance, where the road disappeared. The streetlights faded into the curtain of rain. 5 miles. That was at least an hour and a half of walking. By then, she would be completely drenched, maybe catch pneumonia. But what else could she do? She remembered rideshare apps. She opened her phone, checked her bank balance. $45 until payday. An Uber home would cost around $40, leaving her $5. That wouldn't even be enough for bread and milk for the rest of the week. Keziah put the phone away and wiped her face with her jacket sleeve. She had to walk. She had no choice. But her legs wouldn't listen. She stood there, hugging the soaked bag, staring at the road. Inside, she burned with resentment, humiliation, and anger at herself. Why did she tolerate this? When did everything go so wrong? Keziah took a step forward, then another. Her shoes squelched. The wind picked up, cutting right through her. She walked along the railing, holding onto the grocery bag like a lifeline. The same thoughts spun in her head. How did she get here? Why did she allow herself to turn into a person who could be thrown out of a car in the middle of a bridge? From behind, she heard the sound of brakes. Keziah turned around. A dark blue luxury crossover had stopped at the curb. She didn't know much about car makes, but even in the dark and rain, it was clear this vehicle cost serious money. Shiny, well-maintained, the kind that usually sped past, ignoring regular people. The door opened, and a woman stepped out. Tall, slender, in a light trench coat and under a large umbrella. Her hair was silver, beautifully styled. A pearl necklace glinted at her neck. She was about 60, no less, but she carried herself with confident, youthful energy. The woman walked up to Keziah, shielding her with the umbrella from the rain. "Young lady, are you all right? I saw you being put out of that car." Her voice was low and calm. Keziah looked at her and suddenly felt the lump in her throat become unbearable. She wanted to say everything was fine, but instead a sob escaped her. My husband, we had a fight." The woman gave her a quick, appraising look. The soaked jacket, the trembling hands, the grocery bag. "I see. Get in the car. You're freezing. I'll take you where you need to go." "No, I don't want to trouble you." "Don't argue." The woman took her arm, firmly, but not roughly. "Let's go. You can't stand here. You'll get sick." Keziah didn't resist. She just didn't have the strength. They walked to the crossover. The woman opened the back door and helped her in. Inside, it was warm, smelling of leather and expensive perfume. Keziah sank into the soft seat, placing the wet bag at her feet. The woman got behind the wheel, closed the umbrella, placed it on the passenger seat, and cranked the heater to max. "You'll warm up in a minute," she said, pulling a pack of tissues from the glove compartment. "Here, dry off a little." Keziah took the tissues with shaking hands and dabbed her face and hair. The woman watched her through the rearview mirror, attentively studying her. "What's your name?" "Keziah." "Nice to meet you. I'm Ms. Althea." She paused, then added, "Excuse my bluntness, but your husband is a dog for treating you like that." Keziah flinched at the words. No one had ever said that to her face. Not her friends, not her co-workers. Everyone politely stayed silent, pretended not to notice the bruises covered by foundation, the forced smiles, the excuses for another canceled meetup. We just argued. About money." "Men don't throw their wives out of cars on a bridge in the rain over money," Ms. Althea said calmly. "Men who don't respect the person next to them do that." She started the car, turned on the blinker, and smoothly merged into traffic. The wipers rhythmically counted off the seconds, sweeping the rain from the glass. "Where can I take you?" Keziah gave her address. Ms. Althea nodded and switched lanes. For a while, they drove in silence. Keziah slowly warmed up, the shivering subsiding bit by bit. Quiet jazz played in the car, something smooth and calming. "Keziah, can I ask you a question?" Ms. Althea looked in the mirror. "You don't have to answer if you don't want to. Is this the first time he's treated you like this?" Keziah was silent. Then she answered quietly, "No, not the first time. But it's never gone this far. I mean, he might yell or shove, but not like this." "I understand." Ms. Althea slowed down at a traffic light. "Tell me, do you have anyone? Parents? Friends? Someone you can turn to?" "My parents are in another state. Mama is sick, Daddy is 70. I don't want to worry them. I have a friend, Tanisha, but she has her own problems. 2 kids, husband works out of town." "So you're alone?" "It turns out that way." The light turned green. The car moved forward. Ms. Althea was silent for a moment, then spoke again. "Keziah, I want to make you a proposal. Strange, maybe even crazy, but hear me out before you refuse." Keziah leaned forward, wary. "What proposal?" "I need help. Actually, I need a niece. For one evening, for one meeting." Ms. Althea spoke slowly, choosing her words. "Day after tomorrow, Wednesday, I have a meeting with my late husband's relatives. They want to talk about the business, about the inheritance. I know what they want, to get their hands on what I built myself over the last 15 years, and I need support. Someone by my side who will be on my team." "But why me? You don't even know me." "Because you were in the right place at the right time, and because—" Ms. Althea fell silent, gripping the steering wheel. "Because I had a daughter, Sienna. She died 5 years ago. Car accident. She was 28. After she died, I was left completely alone. Almost no family. My sister passed 10 years ago. Only her children are left somewhere in another city. We haven't spoken in ages, so I thought, what if you played the role of my niece, the daughter of that very sister, who recently moved here from Houston and is now helping with the business? Keziah froze. There were no tears in Ms. Althea's voice, only a dull, old pain. I'm so sorry. Thank you. You never get used to it, but you have to keep living. She turned onto Keziah's street. After Sienna died, my husband's relatives immediately circled like vultures, calling, visiting, offering condolences, and then they started hinting, "You're alone, it's hard for you. Maybe let us manage things?" I told them all to go to hell back then, but they didn't give up. And now they've popped up again, called a family council, invited me to a restaurant. They want a heart-to-heart. The car stopped at Keziah's apartment building, an old brick complex with peeling paint. Half the windows were lit, half dark. Ms. Althea turned off the engine and turned to Keziah. Do you understand what I mean? They think I'm a weak, lonely old woman they can push around. But if I have a niece with me, if they see I'm not alone, that I have an assistant and an heir who knows the business and is ready to take over, they'll back off. They don't know my side of the family, never met my late sister's kids. Keziah looked at her, not knowing what to say. It was indeed a strange proposal. Pretend to be a stranger's niece, deceive some people. I don't know, that's deception. It's a game, Ms. Althea corrected. They're playing games with me. I'm playing with them. The difference is, I want to protect what I created with my own hands, and they want to take it away. She pulled a business card from her purse and handed it to Keziah. Here's my number. Think about it until tomorrow. Oh, if you agree, I'll thank you, financially, and perhaps I can help you figure out your situation. I have a lawyer friend. Very good. He specializes in family law. Keziah took the card. Thick paper, embossed letters. Ms. Althea Robinson, Director of Hearth and Home, phone number, office address. I don't even know what to say. Don't say anything. Go home now, get changed, drink some hot tea, and think. Call me tomorrow if you decide to. If not, I understand. Ms. Althea smiled softly. But you know, sometimes fate pushes us out of our comfort zone, out of a car in the middle of a bridge, for example, so we can see that there are other options. Keziah got out of the car, grabbing her wet bag. The rain had let up a bit, now just a fine mist. Thank you for picking me up, for everything. Don't mention it. Take care of yourself, Keziah. The crossover turned around and drove away. Keziah stood watching it go, still clutching the card in her hand. Then she looked at the entrance, at the dark windows of her apartment on the 3rd floor. Tremaine was probably already home, maybe drinking a beer in front of the TV or sleeping. She didn't even want to go up there, but she had no choice. She entered the building, took the elevator up, unlocked the door. The lights were on in the apartment, the sound of the TV drifting from the living room. Keziah walked into the hallway, took off her wet shoes and jacket. Is that you? Tremaine's voice called out. She didn't answer. She went to the kitchen, put the bag on the table, took out the jar of okra, the pie, the onion. It all suddenly looked so pathetic, the leftovers of a dinner at a mother-in-law's who considered her unworthy of her son. Tremaine walked into the kitchen, stopping in the doorway. He was in sweatpants and a t-shirt, barefoot. He looked normal, even calm. Well, did you make it? Keziah looked at him. This man had been her husband for 6 years. She cooked his breakfasts, ironed his shirts, listened to his complaints about his boss, slept next to him, dreamed of children. And here he stood now asking, well, did you make it? As if nothing special had happened. I got a ride, she said quietly. Who? A stranger felt sorry for me. Tremaine scoffed, opened the fridge, grabbed a beer. Lucky. You could have walked. You wouldn't have died. Maybe your brain would have started working right. He went back to the living room. Keziah stood in the kitchen listening to the TV. Then slowly, she pulled Ms. Althea's card from her jeans pocket, running her thumb over the raised letters. Other options? Maybe there really were other options. The next day, Keziah went to work as usual. In the morning, Tremaine acted as if nothing had happened. Ate breakfast, got dressed, left before her. Didn't even say goodbye. She worked on autopilot all day, thinking about yesterday. Colleagues spoke to her. She answered mechanically. At lunch, she sat in the break room, staring out the window. Tanisha, her only close friend, messaged, "How are you? Movie is rescheduled. Malik is sick." Kessia replied, "No worries. Hope he feels better." By evening, she had made a decision. She took out her phone and dialed the number on the card. "Speaking?" Ms. Althea answered after the third ring. "This is Kessia. We met yesterday, on the bridge." "Kessia, hello. I'm glad you called." I agree to your meeting, if the offer is still open." "Of course it's open." Relief was audible in Ms. Althea's voice. "Thank you. Can we meet tomorrow, Tuesday, to discuss the details? I want to prepare you, tell you about the relatives, how to act." "Okay, what time and where?" "Come to my office around 7 o'clock p.m. The address is on the card. We'll discuss everything calmly. Agreed?" Kessia hung up. Her heart was beating fast. She didn't know if she was doing the right thing, but for the first time in a long time, she felt she was doing something for herself. Not for her husband, not for his mother, not because she had to, but for herself. On Tuesday evening, she told Tremaine she was staying late at work to finish a report. He shrugged, didn't even look up from his phone. The Hearth and Home office was in a business center near downtown, a modern building of glass and concrete. Kessia went up to the 4th floor, found the right door. A young woman sat at the reception desk. "Good evening, I'm here to see Ms. Robinson." "Kessia? Go right ahead, she's expecting you. Office at the end of the hall, last door on the right." Kessia walked down the corridor. The walls were paneled in light wood. Carpet muffled her steps. She knocked on the office door. "Come in." The office was spacious and bright. A large window took up the whole wall, offering a view of the city evening. A dark wood desk, bookshelves, a soft leather sofa. On the wall hung photos, Hearth and Home stores, awards, certificates. Ms. Althea stood up from her desk and came forward to meet her. Today she wore a sharp pantsuit, her hair in a low bun. She looked businesslike, but her smile was warm. "Kessia, I'm so glad you came. Please sit down." They sat on the sofa. Ms. Althea poured water from a carafe into 2 glasses, handing one to Kessia. "I want to tell you everything honestly about myself, about the situation, about what we're facing." She took a sip of water and looked out the window. "My Franklin was 62 when he passed. Heart attack, 8 years ago. We were living okay back then. We had one small home goods store. After he died, I decided to expand. Took out a loan, opened a second store, then a third. Now I have 5 locations across the city. Not a huge chain, but profitable." Kessia listened intently. Ms. Althea spoke calmly, professionally. "Franklin and I had a daughter, Sienna, our only one. She worked with me, helped develop the business. She was brilliant, beautiful." Her voice trembled, but Ms. Althea composed herself. 5 years ago, she was driving to our country house. Winter road, black ice. She skid into the oncoming lane, a semi-truck. She died instantly. "I am so sorry." Kessia didn't know what else to say. "Thank you. You know, that first year, I didn't know how to go on. Franklin died, Sienna died. I was completely alone. The business only stayed afloat because I had good people, good managers. But then I pulled myself together. I decided Sienna wouldn't want me to give up." She took a folder from the table and opened it. Inside were photos and documents. "These are Franklin's relatives, his brother Reginald, Reginald's wife Yvette, and their 2 sons, Dante and Malik." She pointed to the photos. "Reginald worked as an accountant his whole life, retired now. Yvette is a housewife. Dante is an accountant too, works at some firm. Malik is a manager, sells something, I don't really know." Kessia studied the faces. Reginald, a heavy-set man in his 60s with a receding hairline. Yvette, a woman with dyed blonde hair and a dissatisfied expression. Dante and Malik, both over 30, looking ordinary enough. After Sienna died, they started calling often. "How are things? Do you need help?" Reginald offered to handle the business finances. Dante wanted to manage one of the stores. I refused. They got offended and stopped speaking to me. But a month ago, Reginald popped up again, called, said he wanted to meet, have a family talk. And I agreed. Set the meeting at a restaurant for tomorrow, Wednesday. And you think they want to take the business? I'm certain. Reginald hinted on the phone that it's hard for me alone, that I need to think about the future, that the business should stay in the family. Ms. Althea scoffed. Except I am the family. I built this chain. My money, my health is in it. And they want to come and skim the cream. Keziah nodded. She understood this situation better than Ms. Althea might think. She had a similar story with her own mother-in-law. Constant hints that she owed them, was obligated, that family is sacred. And what will I have to do? Be there, support me, show them I have a niece who knows the business and intends to continue it. I'll give you the key figures and business directions. You're smart, you'll memorize it quickly. The main thing is to act confident. Let them see I'm not alone. Ms. Althea pulled out another thicker folder. Here's the business description. Read it tonight. Memorize the basics. Tomorrow I'll send you the address of the restaurant. 8:00 p.m. Dress elegant but strictly professional. We are businesswomen. She smiled. And one more thing. Call me Auntie Althea, or just Ms. Althea if you slip up, but acting familial is better. They don't know how close I was with my sister. We'll say you arrived a month ago after losing your job back home. I took you in and you started helping me with the business. Simple and logical. Keziah took the folder and nodded. She was trembling inside with nerves, but there was also a strange excitement. For the first time in a long time, she was doing something real, not connected to her house, her husband, or his mother. Okay, I'll try. I know you can do it. Ms. Althea put a hand on her shoulder. And thank you, Keziah, really. You have no idea how much you're helping me. Keziah left the office with the folder under her arm. The whole way home, she thought about tomorrow evening. At home, Tremaine was watching football, didn't even ask where she had been. Keziah went to the bedroom, lay on the bed with the folder, and started reading. Hearth and Home stores specialized in home goods. Dishes, textiles, small appliances, decor. 5 locations in different parts of the city. Annual turnover around $2 million. Net profit approx $400,000. Staff of 50 people. Suppliers, inventory, development plans. Keziah read, memorized, and one thought kept spinning in her head. Tomorrow, she would be Ms. Althea's niece, even if just for one evening. On Wednesday, Keziah was a nervous wreck all day. She couldn't focus at work, made calculation errors, had to ask colleagues to repeat things. By evening, she had a splitting headache. She left work early, claiming she felt sick, and went home to get dressed. Tremaine, as usual, was running late. He texted that he was meeting Marcus after work. Keziah was actually glad. No need to invent an excuse for where she was going. She pulled her only decent dress out of the closet, a dark blue sheath dress, knee-length. She'd bought it 3 years ago for a company party, had worn it maybe twice since. She ironed it, put it on, looked in the mirror. The dress fit well, but the shoes were a letdown, old black pumps, scuffed at the toes. She had nothing else. Keziah did her makeup, styled her hair, applied the lipstick Tanisha had given her for her birthday. Looked in the mirror one more time. Not bad. Looked like a businesswoman. Well, sort of, but it would pass. At 7:30, she was standing in front of the restaurant. The Skyline, an expensive place downtown, on the top floor of a skyscraper. Keziah had walked past it before, but never gone inside. Places like this weren't for her and Tremaine. They usually went to Applebee's or the food court at the mall. She took the elevator up, stepped into a spacious lobby. Soft lighting, live music somewhere in the distance, servers in crisp white shirts. It smelled of expensive food and perfume. "Good evening," a hostess approached her. "Do you have a reservation?" "I'm with the Robinson party, Ms. Althea Robinson." "Yes, of course. Right this way. Ms. Robinson is already here." The hostess led her into the dining room. Panoramic windows revealed the city at night, lights, highways, the river in the distance. At a table near the window sat Ms. Althea. She was wearing an elegant beige suit, a pearl necklace, her hair flawless. Seated with her were 4 people, the relatives from the photos. Keziah walked over, trying to walk confidently, though inside she was shrinking with anxiety. Ms. Althea stood to greet her, smiled warmly, and hugged her. "Kessie, finally! I was worried you'd be late." Keziah hugged her back, relaxed. Ms. Althea called her by a nickname. It felt natural. Right. "Sorry, Auntie Althea. Traffic." She smiled and sat next to Ms. Althea. Reginald, sitting opposite, looked at her with curiosity. Yvette was studying her too. Dante and Malik exchanged glances. "Althea, who is this?" Reginald finally asked. "This is Keziah, my niece." Ms. Althea calmly unfolded her napkin on her lap. "My late sister Irina's daughter." "Niece?" Yvette leaned forward. "We've never heard of her." "Because my sister and I hadn't spoken in a long time." Ms. Althea sighed. "After our parents died, we drifted to different cities, lived our own lives. 10 years ago, Irina passed, and I only found out recently. Keziah found me online, wrote to me. We met, and I offered for her to move here." Keziah nodded, picking up the legend. "I lost my job back home. It's tough there right now. Auntie Althea offered to help. I came a month ago. Now I'm helping her with the business." "With the business?" Dante leaned in, scrutinizing Keziah. "So you're working with Althea now?" Keziah nodded, forcing herself to smile. "Yes, for the last month I've been actively getting into things. Auntie Althea is teaching me a lot." "And you plan to continue?" This came from Malik, the younger son. He had a sharp, distrustful look. "Of course. Auntie Althea says she'll pass the business to me eventually. She has no one else." Reginald and Yvette exchanged looks. Dante frowned. The waiter arrived, took orders. The conversation shifted to small talk. Who lived where, what they did. Reginald talked about his grandkids. Yvette complained about her health. Dante mentioned he was thinking of changing jobs. Malik nodded idly, sipping wine. Appetizers arrived. Keziah picked up her fork with a trembling hand, put some salad on her plate. She ate slowly, trying not to draw attention. Ms. Althea beside her remained calm, occasionally patting her hand, a warm, familial gesture. "Well then, since we're all here, let's talk about the main thing." Reginald put down his fork, wiped his mouth with a napkin. "Althea, I wanted to discuss the future of the business with you." "I'm listening, Reggie." "You see, Yvette and I worry about you. You're alone. You're 62 already. The stores are a heavy load. Constant control, solving problems." He spoke softly, sympathetically. "We thought maybe it's time to hand over management to someone in the family. Dante, for example, is an excellent accountant. He could take over the finances. Malik is an experienced manager. He could run the stores." Ms. Althea listened without interrupting. Her face remained impassive. "So, you're suggesting I step away from the business?" "Not step away completely," Yvette interjected. "Just delegate. You get tired, Althea. We see it. And our boys are sharp. They can handle it." "And what role does Keziah play in this plan?" Ms. Althea looked at Reginald. He hesitated, looked at Keziah. "Well, Keziah is great for helping, of course, but she's only been in the business a month. She needs time to learn the ropes, and business requires quick decisions. Experience." "I have work experience," Keziah forced herself to speak firmly. "I'm an engineer by training, worked at a design firm. I figure out numbers and documents quickly. In a month, I've studied the whole business, suppliers, inventory, finances." "Keziah is right." Ms. Althea put a hand on Keziah's shoulder. "She's smart, catches on fast. I see a worthy successor in her." "But still," Dante leaned forward, clasping his fingers, "a family business should be managed by family. And we are family, right? We're Franklin's relatives. We have more rights. Keziah is my niece, my blood. She is family too," Ms. Althea replied coldly. Of course. Reginald raised his hands in a placating gesture. We're not arguing, just thinking that collective management would be more effective. You with Keziah, us with the boys. Combine efforts." Ms. Althea took her water glass, took a sip, looked at Reginald with a long gaze. "Reggie, let's be honest. You want to share the business?" An awkward pause hung in the air. Reginald hesitated. Yvette fussed with her napkin. Dante and Malik stared at their plates. "I'm just thinking about the future, finally," Reginald said. "Franklin was my brother. He would have wanted his work to continue in the family. And you're not eternal, Althea. Forgive the bluntness." "It's okay. I appreciate bluntness." Ms. Althea set the glass on the table, sat up straighter. "Then I'll be blunt too. I built this business after Franklin died. His little shop was making pennies. I took loans, I took risks, I expanded. This is my money, my nerves, my health in this business. And yes, I plan to pass it on. But only to Keziah, my niece." "But we are relatives," Yvette flared up. "Who was Franklin to you? A husband, and Reginald was his brother. We have more rights." Keziah felt anger boiling up inside her. She saw Ms. Althea's face pale, saw her fingers grip the napkin, and suddenly realized she couldn't just sit there silently. "Excuse me, but you are wrong." She looked at Yvette. "Rights belong to the one who created and invested. And you, as far as I know, never even took an interest in Auntie's affairs. All these years. You only showed up now when the business started making good profit." "How are you talking to your elders?" Yvette bristled. "I'm speaking the truth." Keziah didn't lower her gaze. "Auntie Althea built this business alone. After her husband died, she didn't ask for help, didn't complain. And now you want to come and take what's ready-made. That's dishonest." "Kessie." Ms. Althea put a hand on her shoulder calmly, but pride rang in her voice. "No, let them hear it." Keziah turned to Reginald. "You talk about family. But where were you when things were hard for Auntie? When she was taking out loans, risking her last dime? You didn't even call to ask how she was." Reginald turned red, opened his mouth, but Keziah didn't let him get a word in. "And now you come with proposals to manage. Dante wants to handle finances. Auntie has an excellent accountant who's been with her for 7 years. Malik wants to manage stores. Every store has an experienced manager. Why do you need to meddle there? Who are you to tell us what to do?" Malik slammed his fist on the table. Glasses chimed. "Showed up out of nowhere and giving orders." "I am Ms. Althea's niece, and I am protecting the interests of my aunt and our business." "Enough!" Reginald stood up from the table. "We came with good intentions, and we're being insulted here. Althea, I thought you were a reasonable woman, but I see you've turned your niece against us." "I haven't turned anyone," Ms. Althea answered calmly, also standing up. "Keziah is right. You didn't come with good intentions. You came with demands. And I am giving you a clear answer. The business will stay in my hands and Keziah's hands. No shares, no collective management." "You'll regret this," Yvette hissed, pulling on her coat. "Franklin wouldn't approve. Franklin trusted me, and I know he would approve of my helping my own niece, my sister's daughter." Ms. Althea grabbed her purse, nodded to Keziah. "Let's go, Kessie." They walked out of the restaurant under the bewildered gazes of the waiters. Reginald and his family remained at the table. Keziah glanced back and saw them arguing heatedly amongst themselves. Outside it was cold, a fine drizzle falling. Ms. Althea stopped by her car, leaned against it, covered her face with her hands. Her shoulders shook. "Ms. Althea, are you crying?" Keziah approached, touched her shoulder. She lifted her head, and Keziah saw she was laughing through tears, but it was a laugh of relief. "Keziah, you were magnificent, just magnificent." Ms. Althea hugged her tight, for real. "You put them in their place so well, my heart just sang." Keziah hugged her back, feeling the tension of the last few days draining away. "She did it. They did it. I just couldn't stay silent, seeing them pressure you. Thank you. Really, thank you." Ms. Althea pulled back, wiped her eyes. "Let's go to my place. I want to talk to you properly." Not in character, just for real." They drove to Ms. Althea's. She lived in a nice neighborhood, in a new condo building. The apartment was large, bright, with expensive furniture and paintings on the walls. On the dresser in the living room stood photos of Ms. Althea with her husband, with her daughter. Kessia looked at the photos while Ms. Althea brewed tea in the kitchen. Sienna had been beautiful. Dark hair, bright eyes, a smile. In one photo, she stood at the entrance of a store, holding scissors to cut a ribbon. Young, happy, full of life. That was the opening of the third store. Ms. Althea walked up, handing her a cup of tea. 2 years before she died. She was so happy, said we were creating something real. She was beautiful, and smart, and kind. Ms. Althea sat in an armchair, wrapping her hands around her cup. "You know, the first year after she died, I would come home and wait for her to walk in. Say, 'Mama, I'm home.' It was madness." Kessia sat opposite, listening silently. Then it got easier. Not simpler, but easier. I learned to live with the pain. Work helped. And now? Ms. Althea looked at Kessia. "You defended me today, just like a real daughter would. And I suddenly realized I was missing exactly that. Not money, not business. Just having someone by your side who is on your team." Kessia felt a lump rise in her throat. "I understand you. I have no one on my side either. My husband, he's on his mother's side. To him, I don't know, a servant, a source of money, someone he can throw out of a car when he doesn't like an answer." Ms. Althea was silent, then decisively set her cup on the table. "Kessia, I want to make you a proposal. A real, serious one. You helped me greatly today, and I want to help you. I have a lawyer friend, Mr. Sterling. He's a specialist in family law. He'll help you with a divorce if you decide to go through with it." "I can't afford him," Kessia said quietly. "I don't have that kind of money." "I'll pay. Consider it gratitude for today, for being there." Kessia looked at her, not knowing what to say. Part of her screamed that she couldn't accept such help from an almost stranger, but another part, tired, hounded, humiliated, desperately wanted to agree. "Why are you doing this? You don't even know me." "Because I see something familiar in you." Ms. Althea leaned forward. "You remind me of Sienna. Not in looks, but in character. She knew how to stand up for the truth, too. And also, maybe this sounds foolish, but I feel we met for a reason. That night on the bridge, you needed help, and I needed support. Maybe fate brought us together." Kessia wiped tears that suddenly rolled down her cheeks. "I'm scared. Scared of divorce. Scared of being alone. Scared I won't make it." "You will make it. I saw that today. You are stronger than you think." Ms. Althea took her hand. "And you won't remain alone. I'll be beside you." They sat in the living room for a long time, talking. Ms. Althea spoke about her life, her husband, her daughter, how she built the business. Kessia talked about her marriage, how she gradually lost herself, about her fears and doubts. When Kessia got ready to leave, it was already past midnight. Ms. Althea wrote down the lawyer's number, hugged her goodbye. "Call him tomorrow. Tell him I sent you. He'll see you immediately. And Kessie, hold on. The hardest part is ahead, but you will get through it." Kessia got home toward morning. Tremaine was asleep, sprawled across the entire bed. She lay on the very edge, covered herself with a throw blanket, and lay with her eyes open for a long time. In her dress pocket lay the lawyer's card. Tomorrow she would call. Tomorrow a new life would begin. The next day, Kessia called the lawyer. Mr. Sterling saw her that same evening in his office on the 3rd floor of an old but well-kept building downtown. The office was lined with bookshelves. Neat stacks of documents lay on the desk. Mr. Sterling turned out to be a man in his 50s, with graying hair and an attentive gaze. He listened to Kessia silently, not interrupting, occasionally making notes on a pad. "Ms. Althea warned me about your situation," he said when Kessia finished. "Tell me, do you have proof of your husband's aggressive behavior? Witnesses?" Kessia thought. "Witnesses? Ms. Val, her aunt's neighbor, had heard screaming from their apartment several times, once even knocked to ask if everything was okay. Her colleague Tanisha saw a bruise on her arm 3 months ago when Tremaine grabbed her too hard during an argument. There's a neighbor, a friend. They can confirm. Good, that's important. We'll also need financial documents. Your accounts, his accounts, documents for the apartment. Whose name is the apartment in? His. He bought it before our marriage, so you can't claim that, but everything acquired during the marriage is community property. When was the car bought? 4 years ago, during the marriage. That means half is yours. Mr. Sterling wrote something down. Listen, Keziah, the process will take time. Minimum 2 to 3 months if your husband doesn't resist. If he does, it could drag out to 6 months. You'll need a place to live. Returning to that apartment after filing, I do not recommend. I don't know. Maybe my friends for a while? Or I can help find a rental. A voice came from the door. Keziah turned around. Ms. Althea was standing in the office. She smiled and walked in. Althea, hello. Mr. Sterling stood up. I was just explaining the procedure to Keziah. I heard. Ms. Althea walked over and sat next to Keziah. Kessie, I'm serious. I'll help you with housing. I know a good apartment. Rent's cheap, in a decent neighborhood. I'll pay the first 3 months. But why you? Because I want to. Because I can. And because it's important to me that you are safe. Ms. Althea took her hand. Don't refuse. Accept the help. Keziah nodded, unable to speak. Tears blurred her vision. In the last few days, she had known more kindness from a stranger than she had in years of marriage from her own husband. The next week was a whirlwind. Keziah filed for divorce. Tremaine got the summons and went berserk. He called her at work, screaming into the phone, calling her every name in the book. She listened silently, then simply hung up. In the evening, he came to her job, waited by the entrance. Keziah saw him from afar, got scared, wanted to go back inside, but he had already spotted her and walked toward her. What do you think you're doing? His face was red with anger. Divorce? Seriously? Seriously. Tremaine, have you lost your mind? Divorcing over one fight? Not over one, over 100. Over the fact that you don't respect me, humiliate me, put your hands on me. I never beat you. You shoved me, squeezed my arm so hard it left bruises, threw me out of a car on a bridge in the rain. That is violence too, Tremaine. He fell silent, clenched his teeth. Fine. You want a divorce? You'll get a divorce. But you won't get anything. Not a dime. The apartment is mine. I'm keeping the car. The car was bought during the marriage. Half is mine. The court will decide that. To hell with you. He raised his hand as if to strike, but then a security guard came out of the building, a large man who had watched their conversation through the glass. Everything all right? He asked, looking at Tremaine. Tremaine lowered his hand, turned around, and walked to his car. Started it, and peeled out with screeching tires. Keziah thanked the guard, walked to the bus stop on shaking legs, got on the bus, and rode to the new apartment Ms. Althea had helped her rent. 1 bedroom, small but clean and bright, on the 5th floor of a standard building with windows facing the courtyard. She went inside, locked the door with all the locks, leaned her back against it, and burst into tears. From relief, from fear, from exhaustion. She cried for a long time until the tears ran out. Then she washed her face, made tea, sat on the sofa, took out her phone, and texted Ms. Althea. Thank you for everything. I don't know how to repay you. The answer came quickly. Don't mention it, honey. Come over for dinner tomorrow. We'll talk. The next evening, Keziah went to Ms. Althea's. She met her with a smile, led her to the kitchen where dinner was already on the table. Homemade meatloaf, mashed potatoes, salad. Sit. Eat. You probably haven't eaten all day. Keziah really hadn't eaten since morning. Her nerves made it impossible to swallow. Now she suddenly discovered she was starving. They ate, talked about little things. Ms. Althea talked about the stores, new suppliers, plans for the future. You know, Kessie, I was thinking. She put down her fork, looked at her. I have an opening for an administrator at one of the stores. The girl went on maternity leave. Do you want to try? Keziah looked up. Administrator? But I'm an engineer. I don't know how. You'll learn. It's nothing complicated. Customer service, cash control, receiving inventory. The pay is good, more than you make now. And the schedule is flexible. Do you really want to hire me? Of course. You're smart, responsible, you catch on fast. After that meeting with the relatives, I'm confident in you. Ms. Althea smiled. Plus, it will be pleasant for me to work with you. Keziah agreed. A week later, she started the new job. The store was in a residential area, in a small shopping center. The team turned out to be friendly. 3 sales associates, a cashier, and the manager, Ms. Lorna, a woman in her 40s, calm and sensible. The first days were hard. Keziah got confused with the software, couldn't remember where things were, got nervous with large crowds of customers, but gradually she got into the swing of things. The work turned out to be enjoyable. Lots of people, live interaction, a feeling of being useful. And Ms. Althea visited the store often, checking on things. But these weren't cold boss inspections. They were warm visits. She brought pastries for tea, asked about health, asked about the divorce process. The court date was 3 months later. Tremaine came with a lawyer, sullen and angry, trying to prove the car was solely his, that Keziah hadn't contributed money to the family. But Mr. Sterling provided all the documents, bank statements, testimony from the neighbor and friend about Tremaine's aggressive behavior. The judge ruled to dissolve the marriage, sell the car, and split the proceeds 50-50. Tremaine walked out of the courtroom without even looking in Keziah's direction. She stood in the hallway holding the court decree and suddenly felt incredible relief. Free. She was free. 6 years of marriage were over. A new life lay ahead. Ms. Althea was waiting for her at the exit of the courthouse. She hugged her tight and long. "Congratulations, honey. The hardest part is behind you." They went to a cafe, celebrated the divorce with tea and cheesecake, talked about the future, about plans. Ms. Althea suggested Keziah stay in that apartment, said the rent could be paid gradually, no rush. Or you know what? She suddenly fell silent, looked out the window. I have a small house out in the country. Franklin and I bought it a long time ago as a vacation home. After he died, I almost never go there. Too many memories. Maybe you want to live there? It's quiet, peaceful, the air is clean. Keziah didn't know what to answer. It was already too much. The job, the help with the divorce, and now a house. Ms. Althea, I can't accept so much from you. It's not right. Why isn't it right? Ms. Althea took her hand. Keziah, I want to tell you something. Over these months, you've become to me, I don't know what to call it. You've become family. I see in you the daughter I lost. Not in looks, but here. She placed a hand on her heart. You filled the emptiness that was inside me for 5 years. Keziah felt tears welling up in her eyes. And you've become like family to me. More than my own mother, who was far away. You supported me when I was at my lowest. Then let's just be family. Not officially, not on paper, but simply. You are my daughter, I am your mama. By life, by heart. They hugged, both crying, and they didn't care that people in the cafe were looking at them with curiosity. A year passed. Keziah moved into the house in the country, a small 2-story cottage with a garden where apple trees and blackberry bushes grew. She decorated it to her taste, planted flowers, got a cat, orange and fluffy. Work at the store was going well. She was promoted to senior administrator, given a raise. Ms. Althea visited the house often. They spent weekends together, cooking, walking in the woods, talking about everything in the world. One evening, as they sat on the porch with tea, Ms. Althea took out an envelope. Keziah, I want to tell you something. I thought about this for a long time, whether it was right, but I decided it is. She handed over the envelope. These are the deed to this house and a 20% share in the business. I transferred them to you. Keziah flinched, nearly dropping her cup. What? No, I can't accept this. You can and you will. Ms. Althea spoke firmly. I thought seriously about everything. I have no children, no one but you. I want everything to go to the person who is dear to me, whom I love like a daughter, after I'm gone. No buts. The house is already yours, the papers are filed, the share in the business too. The rest I will transfer later, gradually. I want you to learn to manage the business, get fully into things. Maybe in a few years, you'll take everything into your hands, and I'll retire. Kessia opened the envelope with trembling hands. There really were documents: certificate of ownership for the house, contract for the transfer of a share in Hearth and Home. I don't know what to say. Say thank you and accept it as it is. You are my daughter, Kessia. Maybe not by blood, but by soul, and I am happy that fate brought us together that rainy night on the bridge. Kessia stood up, hugged Ms. Althea. They stood like that for a long time, silently, and both felt good, peaceful. Right, Mama, Kessia said quietly. Thank you for everything, for saving me then, and for continuing to save me every day. It was you who saved me, honey. Ms. Althea stroked her hair. You gave me back a reason to live. They sat back down, finished their tea. Ms. Althea talked about plans for a new store she intended to open in the spring. Kessia listened, offered ideas, and for the first time in many years felt needed, important, loved. And somewhere on the other side of town, Tremaine sat in his apartment, watching football and drinking a beer. Alone as he was, and as he would remain. And on the bridge where it all began, cars sped by, and no one knew that right there, in the rain, one life had ended and another had begun. Did you like the story, and which city are you listening from? Thank you so much for your sweet support. I'm looking forward to your comments on the story. On the screen you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.